Hello and welcome to Sports Night Live. You're with myself, Asa Clark, and this is the Book Club. And I'm joined by ex-West Ham, Everton and Leicester City striker Tony Cottee, who's got this new book out, Tony Cottee, West Ham, The Inside Story. Tony, how are you?
I'm very good, Asa, thank you.
Brilliant. OK, the book itself, West Ham, The Inside Story, is pretty self-explanatory, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'd done my first autobiography back in 1995, which covered obviously my early playing career, West Ham, Everton and back to West Ham. And since 1995, which was 17 years ago, there's an awful lot's happened. A lot of water's gone under the bridge. And the second book here that I've done, it basically deals with coming to the end of my playing days, what I've been doing since I retired, and also dealing particularly with the West Ham takeover, which occurred in 2006. And so there's, you know, it is heavily influenced by obviously what's gone on at West Ham, but it is a general football book as well with some good stories in there.
Fantastic. I mean, I read the book, and obviously you went for the takeover in regards to West Ham. Looking back, it seemed like there was many dramas involved in the club. What would you have done differently in regards to the takeover of the club? Is there anything you would have changed at all?
I don't think really there was anything I could do differently. I mean, the problem I had, and I explained it in the book, was when I started, I was just a frustrated fan. You know, there's so much had happened at the club, and I just felt that I wanted to try and make things better. Now, if I'd have been a multi-millionaire, then obviously it would have been a lot easier for me because I could have done it all my own way. I could have made all the decisions, employed whoever I wanted, and done the whole deal myself. But the problem I had was I didn't have any money to put towards the consortium, so I had to really build it up from scratch. And the point being really then is that once you then get, you know, big money involved, and at the end of it, I mean, this was a takeover for £85 million. It wasn't a cheap takeover, it was a very expensive takeover, and I hadn't put any of the 85 million in, so quite rightly, the people that got involved at the end, you know, if they decide they don't want a certain person, unfortunately that was me, then that's their choice. But when you haven't got the money, then you're always at the mercy of a big businessman.
Okay. In regards to the actual, in regards to the takeover and everything else, there was certain people who were coming into the club that eventually kind of took away your kind of project, Egnet Magnuson being one of them. Looking back, did you look on and just worry as soon as this guy came in, who you said in this book you never even heard of?
No, I mean, I hadn't heard of the guy. I mean, with the takeover, I mean, if I explain, I started from absolute scratch, but literally a fan who used to be a footballer, not had a great deal of business dealings in the business world, and I started from scratch. I had to put the whole consortium together. I had an accountant friend of mine who helped me to obviously do all the figures. We had to form a business plan so that when we went to see people, they knew exactly what we was talking about. And I think it's fair to say at the start, as you would have read, we was a bit all over the place at the start, but we gradually got there, and it gradually became very professional. And in the end, I got some very, very good people involved in the consortium, but we was always missing the major investor, someone who would put the bulk of the money in. I've already mentioned £85 million. I needed someone who could put 30 or 40 million pounds in. I couldn't find them, and eventually when I did find them, that was the Icelandic bank, Landsbanki, and the guy who they nominated as their sort of front man as such really was Egnet Magnuson, who eventually went on and become the chief executive of West Ham Football Club. But as soon as he got involved, I think he felt that he didn't need a football person like me. He knew everything about football, which quite obviously he didn't, because you can see all the mistakes he made at the club. But once he got involved, then he felt, or they felt, that they didn't need me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he literally kind of went out and just spent a bucket load of money on players, on long-term wages that really, you know, players like Freddie Lundberg on rumoured to be £85,000 a week, and you think at the time, wow, this club's going places. This man is literally promising to the fans what he said he had come to do. He'd bring all the players he could, but it was kind of like reading the book and reading the reports on it. It seemed like as though it was going to come to an end at some point.
Yeah, I think. I honestly believe that they had all the best intentions, and you know, when I was told that the bank was coming to the table, you know, this was a bank that on paper was worth £2 to £3 billion, billion, not million, £2 to £3 billion, but unfortunately it was only on paper. It was all paper assets. It wasn't the cash that really you know. I mean, I think if you look at Roman Abramovich, for example, there's a lot more cash involved with him than paper money. And I think the Icelandics had all the best intentions, the right intentions. They wanted to make a statement of intent. They wanted to say, look, we are West Ham Football Club, we're going to buy big players and that. I mean, obviously, some of the players were injured that they bought. Some of the players they bought, like Freddie Ljungberg, you mentioned, big wages and never really done it for the club. And in the end, I think they gave him £5 million just to leave. So it was a very, very expensive mistake. But they had the best intentions, but I don't believe they had anyone with any football intelligence, if you like, who could make a call and say, look, why are you paying that sort of money for Freddie Ljungberg? Why are you giving those sort of wages? And they felt they knew best. And you know, I was looking, saying that I don't believe that you know best. You need a football person involved in the board. And the whole point when I put the consortium together, I said you must have a football influence. But they felt they knew better, and of course they discarded me. And I think I was proved right because of the mistakes they made. But that was they had the money; they could do what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it seems nowadays that I can understand why someone like, you look at West Ham with Egan Magnuson, Blackburn with the Venkies, why don't they have football people involved? It seems the most easiest solution to have someone who knows the club inside out, who knows players, who knows on what people should be earning, and giving players sort of the wages that they were given and sign-on fees. It seems absolutely astronomical. And why didn't they? Why didn't they say to you, do you know what, you know the club inside out, we want you on board?
I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know what went on from the point that Eggert got involved up until when they took over the club. I know that the former chairman at West Ham, Terry Brown, had a personal issue with me. I don't think he felt that I was the right man to be involved at the club for whatever reason. I don't think he felt that I had the money, which obviously personally I didn't, but I did bring the right people to the table. I don't know why, but they made a decision. You mentioned West Ham, you mentioned Blackburn. There's many, many other clubs out there where they have got a board of directors of 6, 7, 8, 9, in some cases, and these are all very, very good businessmen, but they've got no one with any football background. And I find it staggering that you would have a board of directors that are running a football club and not have anyone to give advice to that board. You know, if you said to some of these guys, if they're running, I don't know, a double glazing outfit, for example, you know, it's like saying, well, we haven't got anyone who's fitted any windows or knows anything about double glazing. We're going to get 7 businessmen, we're going to make decisions about double glazing, but we've got no experience of it. And why, you know, it's the same principle with football. Why would you make decisions that involve millions and millions of pounds without having some sort of football input? That's what I found frustrating. That's what I knew I could bring to the table. But as I say, I can't, unless I could get Eggert Magnuson to sit there where you are now and ask him, I can't answer the question.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So you said in regards to the football clubs and the experience and football people, do you see the new ownership under David Gold and David Sullivan, also run by Karen Brady, do you feel that that's a kind of, that West Ham are now finally, after all these years, are in the right direction? They've technically, they're fans of the club, they've run a football club in Birmingham City, and surely now they're the right people to kind of take the club forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it was a pretty horrific spell that the club went through, and obviously, unfortunately, I've got to take responsibility for that because I was the ones who brought the Icelandics to the table, albeit with the best intentions. But the fallout from when they, you know, when the bank went bankrupt, it then went into a holding company, and the club was literally teetering on the brink of going into administration before David Gold and David Sullivan took over the club. You mentioned they are fans of the club. You know, I know both the Davids, and I honestly believe that they have got the right intention, the best intentions for the club. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on surrounding the Olympic Stadium at the moment, but I think, you know, these guys are the only ones. When the push come to shove in 2010, because there was a 4-year gap from the Icelandic takeover to David Gold and David Sullivan buying the club, during that 4 years, you know, there was a lot going on, and they was the only ones in 2010 who went, there's our money, we are going to buy West Ham United Football Club. And like I say, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Olympic Stadium, but I honestly believe that they are the right owners for the club at the moment going forward. But I think even David Sullivan's on record as saying, if, you know, a big prince from the Middle East comes in with millions and millions of pounds and they can do to the club what maybe the two Davids can't do, I'm sure they would step to one side. But you never know. I mean, look at what's gone on at Manchester City. Look what's happened at Chelsea. You know, many other clubs. I think Leeds are just about to be taken over. So there's always a lot going on in football. But as we stand at the moment, they are the right owners for the club.
Okay. Do you feel with the Olympic Stadium, though, you did touch on that, the Olympic Stadium is going to catapult West Ham into kind of the next kind of the big clubs? I mean, if this stadium happens, it will be the second largest stadium in London, bar obviously excluding Wembley. But for club-wise, how much will that benefit them?
I think it'd be a massive benefit to the club. You know, I think for my dream is, and I've touched on it in the book, my dream is for West Ham to compete and try and be in the Champions League. I think any West Ham fan who's maybe watching this show would love to see West Ham one day, even if it's just one season, just see them in the Champions League. Now, to be involved in the Champions League, you need money, and you obviously need the stadium infrastructure to make the club bigger. I look at our great competitors, Tottenham Hotspur, who at the moment are on a very similar footing to West Ham. They've got a ground of 36,000, exactly the same. You know, they've had some good managers over the years, and they've gradually built that football club up to the point where they've had Champions League football and should have had it again this season, bar, you know, Chelsea winning the Champions League. So, you know, I think if Tottenham can do it, I think if Chelsea can do it, because historically Chelsea was a smaller club than West Ham before they had the injection of money. Arsenal are probably the biggest club in London. But I think the thing with all those three clubs, Arsenal have got the 60,000 all-seater, Tottenham are moving to the 60,000 all-seater, and Chelsea, given the chance and finding a bit of land, will definitely move to a 60,000 all-seater. So in 5 years' time, those three clubs will probably have their grounds, and I want West Ham to have that ground as well. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to the Olympic Stadium, whether West Ham will actually get the Olympic Stadium, but for them to go on to the next level, you have to have a bigger ground, a bigger fan base, and a bigger club in general. And I think the support's there. It's a massive club, West Ham, and I think that there's room for 4 big London clubs, and I think West Ham, you know, need to be amongst it.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, after the break, we'll be taking a little trip down memory lane with Tony in regards to his Leicester City days, and also what he thinks on the future of Leicester City as well. Back to you in a moment. Welcome back to the Book Club at Sports Night Live. You have myself, Asa Clark, and also Tony Cottee. Now, Tony, we were speaking before the break about West Ham, and funny enough, this is what we're going to come to now in regards to a little trip down memory lane. What was it like playing for West Ham back in the day?
It was fantastic. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a West Ham fan. I was born in West Ham. My parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, West Ham fans, so I was told to support the club. I didn't have any choice in it. I was just told to support West Ham, which was great. Had some great years in the 70s and the 80s where West Ham were winning trophies. And then, of course, to finally make my debut in 1983 as a 17-year-old against Tottenham and score the first goal, win 3-0. It was just a dream come true, and you know, fantastic. I could sit here all day and talk about it, you know how great it was, but just a wonderful, wonderful time for me to make my debut for the club.
Fantastic. Well, when you said at 17, you were kind of, if you don't mind me saying, you're kind of a young prodigy sort of thing, coming through the game, and there's lots of talk about you as well. Nowadays, there's also a lot of talk about young players. As soon as they score the goal and make their debut, they're sort of kind of taken from the youth team and given loads of wages and things like that. What do you think has changed in regards to the way young players were then and young players are now?
So glad you put that picture up of me. It's a horrific picture of me, but I was only 21 there. But I think the difference is the money side of it, really, isn't it? I think, you know, when I made my debut, I think through memory, I was on about £100 a week, which was still decent money in those days. But I think nowadays with the players, I think there's so much build up for them. They're sort of almost like superstars before they've actually played, you know, 5 games really. And you know, you play one game, you get, you know, if a youngster plays for West Ham now in the first team, they play one game, score a goal, and then the next Tony Cottee, which, you know, I don't think's fair on players. Although I was going to be the next Jimmy Greaves. That was who I was compared with. Now,
it's not a bad comparison. Well,
Jimmy Greaves is just one of the most legendary goal scorers ever in English football. So it was, you know, but it puts pressure on you. But I think nowadays with the youngsters, because there's so much money involved in football, I think you've got to be very careful with them, and I think you've got to keep their feet on the floor, because otherwise, if they play their 5 games in the first team and then they're driving around in a brand new BMW or whatever it might be, you know, they can get a bit carried away with it. I think that the most important thing is to get on with your football, keep your head down, listen to the experienced managers and coaches and that. And I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson's the best example. You know what he's done with Ryan Giggs and David Beckham, Paul Scholes, and managed to keep them as just such grounded, nice people, but have the outstanding careers they've got. And I think that's the key to it. But football's changed. I mean, you know, as we sit here now, I mean, I made my debut 1983, I joined the club in 1981, so it was over 30 years ago. And if you try and compare anything in football now compared to when I started, you just can't compare. Everything's changed and everything's different and everything's better.
Well, so you touched on Sir Alex Ferguson in regards to the younger players. When you got brought back to Leicester City by Martin O'Neill,
Yep.
he had kind of like a raw kind of team. Some players who were coming, maybe not to the end of their careers, but they were on the brink of something.
Yep.
What was he like as a manager?
It was fantastic. I mean, obviously Martin's the Sunderland manager now, and you know, I'm a huge fan. He done brilliant at Celtic, Aston Villa, and during my time at Leicester. And I think what I appreciated about Martin, and not just for me, but the other players that were at the club, was he gave players a chance. You know, I mean, I was isolated. I was out in Malaysia. No one wanted to touch me. No one wanted me to play Premier League football. But Martin O'Neill, he gave me a chance, and he did the same. Like Muzzy Izzet was in the reserves at Chelsea, and Neil Lennon was at Crewe Alexandra. Robbie Savage was at Crewe Alexandra. Stan Collymore had a lot of problems, and no one wanted to take a chance. Martin gave Stan a chance, you know. So I think he's very open-minded with players. He's still like it now, and you know, he believes that everyone deserves a chance. You give them the chance, but one thing, if you do the business for Martin O'Neill, he keeps you in the team, he'll play you, and he'll back you 100%. But he's a wonderful, wonderful motivator. I mean, you know, I've touched on a few of the great managers I played for in the book, but you know, in terms of motivating players, Martin O'Neill is right up there.
Do you reckon then that he could go on further from Sunderland? So, for example, a team like Liverpool or like a Manchester United, for example, because he seems to have all the qualities there. He's not really given a lot of money, and it makes you wonder, could he do a better job at, no offence to Sunderland, but a bigger club?
Well, I'm surprised Martin's not been given the chance. I think in the past he's been linked with Liverpool. I mean, there's obviously always speculation about who will take over from Sir Alex Ferguson. You know, could Martin handle the pressure? Could he do the job at Manchester United? I honestly believe he could. You know, he was interviewed for the England job about 5 or 6 years ago. So I think a couple of times he's been very close to getting one of the big clubs. And, you know, it can only be a matter of time, really. You know, if he carries on doing the wonderful jobs he's been doing at all the different clubs, it can only be a matter of time before he gets a chance at one of the big clubs.
Exactly. Brilliant. Also, as well, it says in your book about your days at Barnet. Now, you say that, you know, it wasn't exactly your best time. It was kind of you're cutting your teeth in management.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you were at Barnet and you were a young player, or a young manager, should I say, kind of playing and managing? How did it feel to have all these ideas thrust upon you? Because you said in there you didn't mind taking all the ideas at first, and then you kind of thought, actually, this is too much.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to be your own man. And I mean, the problem is that I was only 35 years of age at the time. I was player manager as well. I mean, it's hard enough being a manager as well as doing the playing. And you know, describing the book how one game I had to do absolutely everything. You know, on the day I was doing the press interviews, talking to the chairman, team talks. You know, I've done everything except pour the tea. I think that day it was a really, really tough job. But you know, I think I was willing to learn. You know, there was people at the club that I was willing to learn off of that. You know, as I went along. But I got to the stage where I'm thinking, well, you know, I don't think I'm really learning here. I need to be my own man. But I think I got caught between. I wasn't really playing to the best of my ability, and I wasn't managing to the best of my ability, and I've been very self-critical here. And I think looking back, I probably wasn't quite ready for the job, you know. But I'd always wanted to be a manager. You know, my careers officer, when I sat down at the age of 13, and she said to me, "What are you going to be when you leave school?" I said, "I'm going to be a footballer." And she said, "Oh, no one's ever become a footballer, you know, you'll never be a footballer, you know. What about if you break your leg? What are you going to do then?" I said, "I'll be a manager." And that was my reply. So I was very I always wanted to be a manager. I believed that I had the qualities to become a manager, but unfortunately I took the Barnet job, and it was the wrong club at the wrong time. I perhaps should have been a number 2 or a coach. You know, a bit like what Steve Bowles done at Arsenal, for example. You know, he's gone through the youth system. He's now the assistant manager to Arsene Wenger, and if Arsene Wenger leaves, he might well become the manager. So perhaps I should have gone down that route. But you know, you live and learn. I mean, by not achieving in the managerial side of things of football, it gave me the chance to work for Sky, and I've had a great time working for them as well. Sure.
Well, in the book also, you're, if you don't mind me saying, you're quite critical of the FA in regards to when you went to the coaching. The coaching lessons. Now, what do you see needs to happen? Because in England, we're seen as having not many coaches at all. You look at Germany, look at Spain, the thousands and thousands they've got. Why aren't we producing as many coaches in the UK?
I think you've got to coach the coaches, really, haven't you? That's the main thing. And you know, I think over the last 10, 20 years, maybe 25 years, I think unfortunately the coaching philosophy, particularly for youngsters, has not been very good. You know, for example, I believe personally the best learning age really is 7 to 12 years of age. That's the real learning curve, where you're at an age you can take in what the manager or the coach is saying, and you're taught the game and you learn how the game develops. I think the best thing that's happened to football over the last 5 years particularly has been Barcelona, because we all sit and admire the wonderful players they've got, the likes of Lionel Messi and Iniesta and Xavi and all those great players and that, but they play football the right way. And I think what's happened now is a lot of people in England have looked at how Barcelona play, you know, the coaches, managers, players, and they're all saying we want to play like Barcelona. Not everyone can do that because we've not all got all the players, but what you can do is you can get the coaches to teach the kids. You know, the mentality we've got in kids football is the most important thing is to win 12-0. And that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to learn how to become a footballer. You know, learn to treasure the ball. You know, when you're in possession, don't give the ball away. Work on your skills, you know, and develop all those. And that's what we need to do with our kids. But so many managers over the last few years have been just talking about how tall and how quick they are, and, you know, can we kick it down the pitch as quick as possible? And hope, you know, we need the attitude to change. And I believed a lot more should have come from the FA. They are changing. They have tried. There's a lot of rules and stuff that come in to place over the last couple of years. It's taken a long time. They are getting there, but it needs to be fast-tracked to make sure that we can start competing with the likes of Spain and Argentina and Brazil. Okay.
And you also said that every team models themselves, or trying to model themselves on Barcelona. With West Ham, they've always had a way of playing the West Ham way. Do you feel that with Sam Allardyce, the way that they play, it's not exactly, I would say, long ball, but they do keep the ball when need be. Do you think that's the way to go forward with West Ham?
Well, I think Sam's got a particular style that he believes in. You know, I've already said how much I love Barcelona, but I also believe there's room in the English game, particularly for different types of football. At the moment, we've got a very good centre forward called Andy Carroll, who, you know, also plays for England as well. You know, Liverpool wanted to play a certain style, didn't want to play to Andy's strengths. Sam's got his way of playing, and he's brought Andy Carroll in. And if West Ham play to Andy Carroll's strengths, then he's an asset. So why would you not want to utilise the asset? You've got to get the balance right. You mentioned the West Ham style of play, the West Ham way. You know, I think that there is a special way that the fans want to see their football played. But as Sam quite rightly said, you know, where has it got West Ham? They haven't won anything for 32 years now. It's a long, long time. So you've got to get the balance right. I don't believe West Ham can play like Barcelona because we haven't got the players. But I think if we can get a mix of how Sam wants the game played, try and have a bit of good football with Barcelona, blend them together, get the best out of Andy Carroll and Kevin Nolan as well, then I think you've got a West Ham team, as we've already seen recently, they're in the top 10 and they're doing really, really well. So, you know, you can't criticise what Sam's trying to do at the club.
Do you reckon they'll stay up this season?
Absolutely, yeah, and I said that. I'm not sitting here smugly after, 10, 11 games. I honestly believed at the start of the season when people were asking me, where do you think West Ham will finish? I said, I think they'll finish mid-table. I think they've got some really good players. That was before Andy Carroll signed. I said Kevin Nolan would score goals. You've got James Tompkins, James Collins at the back, Winston Reid have done really well. They signed Asa Clark to replace Rob Green. There's some really good players at the club. And I believed that they would finish mid-table. I think, you know, anything above 10th position, I think, you know, the fans will be absolutely delighted with. But for their first season back in the Premier League, they've done it last time they got promoted. Under Alan Pardew, they finished, I think it was 9th and got to the FA Cup final. And I think the fans would certainly take a mid-table finish. But West Ham United Football Club needs stability. We've already spoke about the takeovers, all the turmoil at the club, the Carlos Tevez affair that West Ham are still paying for. There's so much gone on over the last 6, 7 years. They need stability, and I think in Sam Allardyce, I think they've got a manager and the current owners that can settle everything down and let West Ham just develop nicely as a club, and we can see the outcome of the Olympic Stadium as well.
Fantastic, great stuff. Well, thanks very much to Tony.
Thank you, Asa.
You've been through to Sports Night Live, and this is the Book Club. Thanks for watching.